Welcome back to Popcorn Art with Karen and Olga. We're here today to talk about and to draw monsters.
Monsters.
Yes.
It's a very heavy topic for me because I basically feel doesn't like monsters. Do you like monsters, Olga?
No, I don't like. I think the only monsters I like are on Sesame Street. Like I like the fuzzy ones, and I feel like over time on cartoon characters like in Monsters Inc. they have tried to make them quite, nice and friendly, even though they have a little bit of scary features.
Yes. So for my experience about monsters is always have sharp teeth, ugly faces, gluey all over. And it's horrified me when I was young because I usually have nightmares with monsters. Do you have nightmares?
Yeah, I do remember when I was quite young, one of my reoccurring nightmares was running through a jungle with a whole stampede of jungle animals chasing me, like elephants and tigers, and just not being fast enough to run from them.
That's right. That's right.
I don't know where I got it from because we didn't have movies like Jungle Book back in the day. We had the book, but just not the movie.
Not the movie.
As animated and quite scary as they make them these days.
That's
for
right.
children. Not really for children.
It is. But what you say about Monster Inn, I really like them a lot just because they are much more friendly and they are trying to save the world.
Yeah.
Isn't it? So let's start with some sketching about monsters. So is your monsters usually one-eyed or two eyes or several eyes?
Anything, I think that when I think about monsters, I think about how they really try to soften the theme for children. Like, even if you think about minions are, they
little
look a
creatures?
little bit like creature monsters, but they're quite cute, and that cuteness makes them quite enjoyable to look at.
That's right. But we have to think about out of the box that why kids are particularly scared of monsters just because they don't look like us.
Yeah.
It usually doesn't have two eyes and one nose and a mouth, isn't it?
Yeah, perhaps. And I guess for every child, the theme of monsters is a little bit different. Like, my kids never went through the monsters under the bed phase, or maybe it's still to come.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I'm a bit more of a realist when I'm with them. Like, I tell them that there are probably more scary things in real life than the imaginary. So
I used to dream about my toys and monsters all floating in the air. When I'm sleeping, I'm saying, "Mommy, I don't want to go to bed because my toys are, my monsters are waking up, in the middle of the night."
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and I don't want to go to bed because I'm afraid that they will attack me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so these are some of the imagination, that kids have. But kids have great imagination.
That's right. And culturally, it's interesting that monsters take on different shapes and very different imagery across cultures. But something that's not a monster, but is like a myth of something that exists and it's cross-cultural is dragons, because you find them in medieval texts in Europe, and you also find them obviously in China and Asia and East Asia.
Yes.
And my son always asks me, well, so are they real or are they not? And my response to him is usually that, well, perhaps they're not verified, but we certainly have them in a lot of texts back in the day, from ages ago.
So in the Western we have the Western dragon, and then in the Eastern we have the Eastern dragon. They look different, but they kind of have the same kind of spirit in terms of ferocious, and they are the battle, the courageous, kind of thing. So I remember that the Western dragons are usually with wings.
Mm-hmm. Gargoyles.
Yeah, the gargoyles. Whereas the Eastern dragons doesn't have a wing. And Eastern dragons usually chase after a pole, a fiery pole. Mm-hmm. Do you know the story about Eastern dragons?
Mm-hmm.
So they're supposed to, they have this pole that's in the body, and they're chasing after the pole. So the myth of the Eastern dragon is that it's chasing after that spiritual pole, that they have, which is amazing.
Okay.
Yeah, we can talk about dragons another day.
Just one thing I wanted to ask. Is it true that in Singapore
Yeah.
they have some buildings where parts of the building are cut out, the skyscrapers, so that a dragon can pass through the building?
Yes,
Is it
so
something
under
like that
feng
exists?
shui, there is this building that is that I know, I forgot where the location is. There is a feng shui where they have a corridor that is built in between, so that they say that the dragon can pass through. It's just to give it a very sacred name for the building. Yeah, and there are people who saw a dragon before.
Really?
Yes. They are images in the clouds, and they saw dragons flying in the sky. So in the Chinese myth, it seems that there are quite a lot of people that have seen dragons.
That's incredible.
And but the Western world is often talking about the UFO,
Yeah, that's right.
which is the monsters, isn't it?
Well,
And the aliens.
yeah, beings not from this planet coming in and visiting us, and has it happened? Has it already happened?
But have we ever thought that whether they are the aliens or we are the aliens? We have invaded their planet. Olga, have you ever thought about that? I always have thought that probably we have invaded the planet and they're just coming back for it. That's it.
Alright, should we show the viewers our little
That's a
doodles?
lot of monsters that you've done. I've just done a big one. So my monsters has multiple eyes, and he's able to see 360 degrees, alright? And he goes around seeing things, and he's able to catch his prey because of its powerful attributes of
Very ferocious.
vision.
Yeah.
I'm not quite ferocious because I draw her to have a beautiful lip, so his way of attacking is to kiss.
Oh,
How do you like the monsters? And then he was kiss, and then he was slop on your face, and I was like, oh, what kind of monster is that? I would like that, don't you?
I think that mine, as we were talking, I was kind of contemplating the dragon a bit, or I'm not sure if it's a kind of, it's a little bit like a dragon, missing the wings though. And then I was thinking more about the comical monsters that we see in shows like Monsters, Inc. And so I have a bit of the extended eyes and kind of blob shaped and more fuzzy ones.
Yeah, that's very cute. So we didn't draw monsters that's too scary, didn't we?
Yeah.
But when we talk about monsters, we talk about human beings. I often think that we imagine monsters because we don't have the capabilities of monsters, and we try to imagine creatures that can. So like the monsters that you're drawn with the snot, and then putting out water, from the snot, and we don't have multiple eyes, so we draw them with multiple eyes. So monsters are usually imaginary. But however, because being a child, they do not know the truth.
It's sometimes that where the real world ends and where the imaginary world begins, it doesn't have like very clear boundaries in childhood.
That's right.
Yeah.
So the question is, should we introduce monsters to the world of a child?
I think that it's fine because they just need to. When they get scared, what they're lacking is maybe just thinking about what would you do in a dangerous situation, or what would you do when you need help from somebody, or what would you do if you encountered something that you've never seen before and you don't know how to behave around it. But threats are real in real life. Monsters are kind of just like the softer way to introduce the idea of something unknown and how you would react around it and how you protect yourself. So I do think that children need those skills. So I'd say thumbs up for stories with monsters because they're really important culturally and for development as well.
It is, because we got to teach the children to overcome their fears. So introduction of monsters to them, and imaginary ones, to tell them that you can overcome it, because it's actually the fear in you. So once the child is developed and slowly understands, not going to be scared of it, you know. So my children grew up with lots of soft toys, and you know, we play with them, and then we try to play monsters with them, and they were scared in the beginning, but after a while they're like, nah, that's daddy, that's mommy, you know. They realize the reality, but you know, often enough nowadays parents do not like children to have nightmares, and they try to avoid showing them these imaginary toys or imaginary creatures. And you know what? That's not.
Yeah, I think it should be like in balance, because they need positivity in their life, but if there's something negative, running away from it is probably not the answer. It's probably better to discuss it. In fact, what I would really encourage children to do if you're afraid of monsters is do exactly this. Draw them on paper. Sketch out what you think your fear is, and then that way you don't have to visualize it in your mind anymore. You can visualize it on paper, and then you can perhaps even like critique it or make fun of it. So you can say, hey, I mean, it's not that scary. Or even if you draw something that is mad scary, you know, once it's on paper, you can kind of list your thoughts around that drawing about like what is it that bothers you about that image, and what does it have the personal meaning. So that's actually a really good exercise to do with a child, is use a sketchbook. Sketchbooks are very effective at drawing not just what we're visualizing in our minds, but getting a bit deeper into the feelings around it as well.
That's right. And often enough when you do start sketching, you find that, you know, that fear can turn into something that it's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
You know.
Karen, do you want to show this one?
This is the Eastern dragon.
Yeah.
So I grew up with Eastern dragon. So this is the Eastern dragon that I see when I was young, for Chinese New Year, for any major events, even the opening ceremony of a shop or a restaurant. For the reason is because the dragon are supposed to bring luck.
Yeah.
They're supposed to bring luck to the place, even though we think that it might be a monster. In the Western culture, it's always thinking that dragons might be more evil, isn't it? But our Eastern dragons is supposed to bring good luck, and
I quite love them.
The drums,
They're mystical,
the music that goes around it, actually is going to ward off the evil around it, and then bring good luck.
Yeah.
So this is what we believe, and we still believe that.
That's excellent.
And then it's amazing, and a dragon is basically a cultivated being. So I don't know. So do we want to be a monster, or do we want to be this? It's all up to you. So, but I don't know, because in Russia where you grew up, do you have anything about dragons?
We have a lot of interesting monsters in Russian folklore, and I guess it's a little bit more European in the sense that we have witches. Have a very witches and grotesque beings, but I'm not really up to date with the most current Russian children's literature and illustrations, but back in the day, for me that would be the 1980s, we had a lot of imagery, and it was usually around like the presence of witches and things like that. Wolves, witches, angry bears.
Because Russia has beautiful animals. That's why you come up with all these things, isn't it? I know they got Russian. Oh my god, you got Scandinavian.
But I think it's a topic for
It's another topic for another day.
I think we're good for today.
And don't forget, we are popcorn art, and don't forget to have your popcorn when you're drawing with a friend.
Keep your energy up.
I know, get a friend over, talk about your fears, draw it out. You know, you never know that after drawing, your fear is gone.
Yeah.
So keep in
You'll
tune.
feel better.
You'll feel better.
Take care.
Take care.
And stay safe.
You too. Bye.
Bye.